Let me help you plot your entire book in less than an hour. I saw a video about somebody that plotted their book over the course of a full day, and honestly, I'm not quite sure what she did with the rest of the hours because it doesn't take that long if you really know your characters. When you're plotting your book, you need 3 pillars: a goal, a motivation, and a conflict. And the goal has to be big enough to last an entire book and have a bunch of steps that go into it. Don't worry about figuring out the steps right now because I am going to tell you exactly how to do it. Do I think that you have to go and do these in-depth character analyses? No. I do, however, think that you need to know 2 things before you start plotting. And these are simple. They shouldn't take you very long. Number 1, what matters most in the world to your character? It could be their family, it could be their job, it could be their house. And number 2, I want you to know what your character is most afraid of or scarred by. So we all have deep emotional wounds. I talk about it a lot in my videos, and these are traumas that could be small, like just being left in the supermarket by accident when you're 5, or big, like being mugged when you were 15. They become scars that leave us with fear, insecurities, doubts, anxieties. And what happens then is it makes us react in a different way than somebody that didn't have that trauma. If you think about it, somebody who was accidentally abandoned as a child is going to react differently in a situation of abandonment than somebody that never went through that. So just take 5 minutes and tell me, what were they scarred by as a child? Just something that stayed with them and impacted how they react to situations. Now for the next 60 seconds, I want you to look at the list of things that matter most to your character, and I want you to think about what would happen if you took one of those away. When you figure out what matters most and how you're going to take it away, that becomes the catalyst for your plot that sets off everything. These are the things that spur your character into action. If you look at books like Final Girls, Home Before Dark, With My Little Eye, each of those have a character that has the thing that matters most to them taken away. In With My Little Eye, it is her sense of security and safety. With Final Girls, it is her identity. And with Home Before Dark, it is literally the home that she thought she knew. Those things are turned upside down and taken away in the beginning of the book. And that's what I want you to do to your character. Next, I want you to write down 3 reasons why it matters so much to them to get it back. In Shrek, it matters so much to him to get his swamp back because that is where he is safe from the pitchforks of the soldiers and the people that try to kill him. And with My Little Eye, it really matters to her to find a place of safety and security because she has a child that she needs to protect. Those 3 reasons that you come up with become the character's motivation. So now you have a goal. Now you have a motivation. Let's come up with conflict. If you have watched my masterclass on scenes, then you will see that there needs to be conflict on every single page of your book. Every page, because conflict creates something called tension, and tension is what keeps the reader turning the pages. The reader is always wondering, will it work out? Are they going to be safe? Is she going to find him? So to figure out your conflict, I want you to take a few minutes and figure out 6 things that can get in your character's way. That can be other characters. It can be a place. It can be distance. It can be a bunch of different things. In Taken, Liam Neeson has to go to Paris. That's a conflict. All of the bad guys that get in his way are a conflict. There's a ton of conflicts that keep him from his goal of finding his daughter and restoring his family. Now that is all what's called the external plot. So good, you've probably got that in 15 minutes. Let's talk about the internal plot, which will take a little bit longer, and it should, because now you're digging deep into your character's psyche and emotions. Remember that deep emotional wound I had you come up with for your character? That is going to be the root of all of this. As you're writing a book, and I've shown you this plot chart before, the external plot is happening, things are getting worse, the character's having to overcome a bunch of conflicts to get their goal, but internally, as they're overcoming these conflicts, they are confronting the demons of their past. That's why it's important to pick something that's really important to your character, because when it's super important, they will willingly overcome their fears, anxieties, doubts. That's why you start there. Once you know what that deep emotional wound is that they're going to need to overcome, that becomes your internal goal for the character. Now I want you to think about why it's important for them to fix this or deal with this. What is your character's motivation to confront this insecurity or weakness or anxiety within themselves? Because most of us really, really hate change, right? Unless we go to therapy, we would rather not get out of our little emotional comfort zones because that's not fun. And that reason ties back into what you just figured out. In Final Girls, throughout the entire book, the character has to confront what part she played in the murders that put her where she is today. That is the trauma that has set off this entire goal for her to protect this facade of a life that she is living. Because if she can keep that facade going, she doesn't have to deal with her past. So that's her motivation. And so what does the plot do? It makes her confront that truth over and over and over again until she finally deals with it, overcomes it, and essentially succeeds. Lots and lots of movies force characters to face their deepest fears in order to achieve what they're there for. These characters have deep emotional wounds that make them doubt themselves, but also make them perfect for that storyline, because as they overcome those fears, doubts, and anxieties, they become stronger people, and the reader's like, yeah, you got this, you can totally do it. So you know what the character's emotional goal is. You know why they need to overcome it. And the last thing you need is conflict, because on the page you're going to have external conflict, which is all the physical roadblocks to your character, and internal conflict, which is all of their emotional roadblocks, all of those fears that get in the way. Because let's face it, nobody changes overnight. It is a gradual growth process. Those conflicts are the sort of hurdles that they have to overcome in order to get to where they should be emotionally and internally. Here's an idea that you can think about that could give your plot a lot of depth. What if your character's deep emotional wound created the event that took away the thing that mattered most to them? If you can take that deep emotional wound and make it the cause of the catalyst, you've created a plot that is really well interlocked. Let me back up and tell you exactly what I mean by that. In Taken, Liam Neeson's inability to get emotionally close to his family has already cost him his marriage. It's cost him his relationship with his daughter. And because he wasn't super close to his daughter, she lied to him. And when he needs to help her, he has very little information to go on.
Good luck.
Now, they don't talk about in the movie why he's emotionally closed off. He probably had something happen when he was a kid, but that is exactly what I mean. What if your character's trauma created the reaction that caused their big problem? Whether or not you decide to have the deep emotional wound be the root cause of the catalyst, I want you to think about how you're going to make your character face their deepest fears. So, you know what the character wants, you know why they want it, and you know what's getting in their way, both externally for the whole book and internally emotionally. Now you got to figure out scenes. So you probably have like 10 minutes left in your hour. Scenes are simply steps. They're the steps your character has to take in order to accomplish their goal. If your character wants to get their home back or they want to find their missing child, they're going to have a ton of steps that they need to take. Just list 10, because that gives you a great basis for your scenes. It won't encompass everything, but it will give you a really great foundation to start writing. One more like extra credit thing you can do. I want you to look at those 10 steps and list 10 ways every one of those could go wrong, because that creates conflict and creates plot twists. And that makes it really interesting. Don't worry about writing yourself into a hole that you don't know how to get out of, because your subconscious lays all the clues that you need in order to figure it out. Now, if you want to dive more in depth into plotting your book in an hour, and do it literally in an hour, you can pick up the Writing Compelling Fiction workbook, because all of the exercises in here help you do exactly what I just talked about. They give you lots of questions to think about. You can go through it in a very short period of time and have your plot ready to go. And if you want to write stronger and more emotionally and really get that reader just so invested in your story, check out this video here, because it will tell you exactly how to layer emotion in your book.